The Dental Brief is brought to you by Omni Premier Marketing and the amazing guests who bring wisdom and advice that you can put to use to take your business and practices to the next level. Find us on Facebook and join the conversation. Get ready to grow because we are kicking off the next episode in 3, 2, 1.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Dental Brief. I'm back with a third-time guest. I believe it's a third-time guest from Crazy Dental Prices, one of the best named companies in the dental industry. Jay Glazer, say hello to everyone.
Hey, everyone. How are you?
Good. I'm glad to have
Pleasure
you here.
to be here. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
I happen to follow you on social media, so I know that you're everywhere on the planet, always, multiple places. I think you're like Janet Jackson and Michael Jackson, really the two different people pretending to be the same.
A guy called me, he says, you're the church mouse of dentistry.
Yeah, you really are everywhere.
Going to St. Louis tonight, if anybody's there.
Yeah, you'll be the only one there. The St. Louis in April, I don't see anyone being there. So, hey Jay, we were talking before you jumped on kind of about things that are going on in dentistry and some things that are not always fun conversations to have with dentists, practice owners, and what have you. And it's a little bit to do with crazy dental prices too, right? Cutting overhead, right? Figuring out ways to get more efficient, which can save money, which is cutting overhead and cutting overhead in general. How we started talking about that, and I know you remember because it was 3 minutes ago, was we were talking about keeping employees, right? And how compensation does play into that and keeping employees. And that might not be an area that you can cut overhead. In fact, you may actually have to increase what you're spending on labor in order to keep good people, to keep them attracted to working in the dental industry. So tell me, outside of supplies, what are some ways that you hear of dentists cutting overhead? What are some things that you're hearing out there and things that they're doing to either, increase profits by bringing in more revenue or cutting cost?
Yes, it's a great point that it's a great conversation piece that we had before we jumped on live. And I think it's not only in dental. I have a friend of mine who works in cybersecurity for a hospital. And another friend of mine who works as a board member and also another hospital. And it's a serious challenge that in general healthcare is seeing. And as we talked about, in every industry, there's always this race to the bottom and squeezing of margins. And I think that's what's happening. We see it with our business. Many of the conversations we have daily is, we recently sent out a survey to some folks that stopped using us. Like, why'd you leave us? And we're trying to just grapple with this. And the number one reason people say is because I went on the internet and I have 18 different windows open and I spend an hour of my time looking to try to find, well, this product I save 48 cents and this product $1.50 and that product, $8. And today with the internet, you have the ability to do that. People do that. That's their therapy. They look around and it affects people like us. And any dental distributor has that, where you're able to go and it's just the margins are shrinking. And I think in any dental office, it's going to be the same way. Ultimately, if the doctor may have to do that, he may have to charge a little less to see his patients. But if he does that and his patients find out about it, he'll actually have more patients, which means he can go ahead and hire more employees. And
sure.
The doctor probably won't be losing money. He'll probably actually make money because, the competitor across the street or down the block, or I should say his good friend, who's also the dentist, and he or she, they may have to, that may be the answer. It's on the volume, not the volume of patients that you see versus, what you're charging per patient. And I know some of the margins that are out there. They're pretty high. They're good. They're healthy. But I see with our people that buy from us, a few dollars sometimes can make a big difference.
Sure.
And it's.
So let me talk about this, and we'll talk about prices a little bit on dental supplies. And I know that you guys will match anybody's price, and that's fantastic. And you talked about people like investing time trying to find better prices. And I'm not opposed to anybody being efficient, being effective, making sure that what they're paying is in line and makes sense. However, you can go really overboard with this, right? I talked to my, mother-in-law. I'm sure she doesn't listen to this. Hopefully she doesn't. This would be the one that she did. But one time about, she lives in Texas, and one time about going to Costco to buy gas for her pretty efficient import luxury car, and how she was saving like 3 or 4 cents a gallon on gas there on like 15 gallons, which, doing the math on that real quick, is, what are we talking about? $1.25, $1.50. But she would use an entire gallon of gas, which is like $2 or $3 to go there to get the better price. So it actually cost more money. But here's the thing: is it cost more money, so it wasn't that. But it also costs time, right? Which her time is worth way more than $2, right? To go those 20 miles there and back. And that's round trip. That's not round trip. That's there and back. But here's the thing. It's so funny. She's an incredibly smart lady. She was one of the first women to get an MBA in this country. I mean, we're talking like in the 70s, right? And when MBAs were like much more difficult programs to get into than they are now. And at Vanderbilt, right? So really smart lady. And no matter how smart some people are, no matter how mathematically intelligent they are, they see savings and their brain like shuts off and they can't realize like, hey, I'm actually losing here, right? So people actually have, I'm not going to be able to articulate this well, they have this mindset that they would, losing $5 is worse to them than gaining $10 as a benefit. So people are so afraid of loss. They're so concerned about loss. They're so concerned about overpaying 20 cents or $2 or $20 that they may actually behave in a way that costs them far greater than that. I think this happens, and it happens to everybody. I don't care who you are.
I using your example, your analogy with gas, I do that all the time. I'll spend an extra 10 minutes to go to Costco and save, 10 to 20 cents a gallon.
Yeah.
But over years, I save a few $1,000 a year because I have multiple cars, whatever.
Right.
But you think about it sometimes, is it worth driving 15, 20 minutes from the other side of town to go? I was actually in Jersey earlier this week, and I needed to get gas to drive back home. And I saw Costco. I'm like, score! I have a membership. I'll just go there and get. And it was actually 35 cents less a gallon there than another. But the lines were insane.
Sure.
Insane. And I like to make fun of my kids. I do that here in the office sometimes also, like 7-Eleven, right? So, in 3 months from now, you get July 11th, 7-Eleven, they give you free Slurpees. And people line out the door for like Rita's, you want to get some ices. And, people just line, like these days. I think to myself, like, just go tomorrow and spend $1.50 and get yourself a Slurpee instead of spending 45 minutes, literally 45 minutes online.
Right.
That's how people have a budget. They think, oh, I'm saving, and our minds are totally just like with budgets and money. And
there's actually a Costco on the way. Like I literally have to pass by a Costco to go to my office from my home. Now I only get a tank of gas. I have a pickup truck, but it's a hybrid. And I drive so little. I only get a tank of gas a month, right? Maybe every 3 weeks. It's pretty slim that I fill this thing up. And if I'm on my way to the office and it's early in the morning before there's any lines, I will go to Costco and get gas. But if I'm going the other direction for another way and I'm on empty, I'm not stopping by Costco. And yes, I could save $5 or $3. Usually it's a couple bucks. Right. I'm just not going to do it because I don't have the time, right? The time matters more. And what could I be doing with that time, right, in order to make money? And I think this is something we all need to think about. I'm give you an example. I didn't grow up with much for resources, right? And so I'm very, very very picky about having a very clean house as an adult. For the longest time, I cleaned my own house always because I thought it was like the right thing to do, and not growing up with resources. It was crazy to pay someone. But if I pay someone $50 an hour to do something because I make $60 an hour, it makes sense to do it because that's one more hour that I have to make money, which is a net of $10. Makes sense, right? I mean, over and over and over again. So I think that's great what you guys are doing is saving money on supplies. I think that's a smart thing to do, and I don't think we should overpay for anything. But at the same time, I will tell some people, like, hey, don't get over caught up with this. If you can one-stop shop and make it convenient, save yourself a few hours. If that's $800 an hour in share time, is $1,600.
No brainer. So that's our motto. We tell people, leave the pricing to us, and you guys just do your job. Be an artist, be a dentist, be an hygienist, be an office manager, be an assistant, whatever your job is. If you're in the insurance, whatever you're doing, bookkeeper for the office, and do whatever you do, just if you trust us, or you trust whoever whoever your provider is, then just get it done. And it's worth shopping around every once in a while. We're all for it. But it's challenge us, but it's your time is the most valuable commodity. It's time, as they say, time is so saying I can't think straight. I hope it'll come back to me probably when I go to sleep tonight. Yes.
Well, it's the one thing that we all have, the limited use of, and it
doesn't come back. It doesn't come back. It's over. Once you pass, it's over. And if your primary income is your patients, focus on your patients. And make sure, and even look, like you say, you can go online. You should find out, like, what are people saying about XYZ. Don't believe everything, but once you see it enough times, and it makes sense, do your own research once, twice, whatever, and just stick with it. And whatever, once or twice a year, you can look it over again. But you focus on the patients. That's where your bread is buttered.
Yep.
And
I'd encourage people to. Unfortunately, I don't memorize all these wonderful sayings, but you should invest a little bit of time every single day creating a process or a system that will allow you to never have to do that task again. Right. So if you can spend a little bit of time today figuring out what you could eliminate from your plate in the future that you would never have to do again, that you could somehow sub out, that you could, maybe outsource, that you could have another team member do, that you could train somebody else, have one of your kids do it. Just had one of my kids do a bunch of intensive labor that saved me a bunch of time, right? And he had a few bucks out of it, so it was great. Jay, in your
that's
travels,
what DSO. That's what people. I'm sorry, I can.
go,
Yeah.
no, go for it.
I was
Go.
just going to say, well, hold on. I was going to say that's why a lot of dentists are moving. I'm not saying whether it's better or worse. I mean, a lot of people are going to the GPO, the DSO, or because it's just they're offering services that the average dentist just can't do he or herself.
Yeah,
There are expenses to that, and it does cost more money. And some people like doing things their way, and they don't want to have to conform to someone else's requirements. It's not simple, but and you may not make as much with people that want out, or they don't want to deal with certain things. They just want to go to the office and go home, like we discussed earlier. Like it's staffing is an issue. Why is it an issue? Some people just want to go to the office and leave. They don't want to have to deal with working over after the office is closed or before, and all this paper. They don't want to deal with it. And these companies have management fees, and they take care of all what they need. So
right.
it's different, everybody's different strokes for different folks. And some people are workaholics and they love this stuff, or they feel like they do a better job as a dentist if they're focused, if they work, from A to Z with the patient rather than outsourcing stuff. So there's different strokes for different folks. We believe that there's
Sure.
going to be, the private dentist is not going away. That's going to
No.
be here. It's people still, like we discussed this also, even though the social world today is shrinking and concept of having conversations and just talking to people seems to be, also seems to be less and less. But
Yeah.
at the end of the day, you mentioned travels. I don't know where you were going with that, but I guess I'm looking forward to hearing. But I do firmly believe that the personal touch, like we met in I think it was in Boston. We were in Boston. We were in Maine,
I mean,
right?
yeah.
We were Portland, Maine. Yeah, they just got whacked with snow, I think, this week. But at the end of the day, there's nothing like personal touch. And I don't care what
Yeah.
anybody says. I traveled, like you mentioned, a hell of a bunch. And here, it does. Some people don't like it. I pressure them, like we should meet in person. Like no. It's like we become so ingrained with, and that's
Yeah.
it. Or I got my phone and that's it. Or we're talking here, on a podcast and the video, and that's like, there's nothing like it. I don't
Yeah.
care anybody.
There's a study that came
It's
out.
natural.
I don't remember the source of the study, but it was creditable. And it was about, I think we're somewhere for countries where like in the high 20s or low 30s as far as happiness is concerned. So there's a lot of countries that are way happier than we are. But what they're tying that, and we used to be up there at the tops, but they're literally tying happiness together, like the timeline from the time that kids got phones. So basically, we're seeing that having phones in our pockets, having computers and access, and I shouldn't say phones, it's social media, smartphones and social media, tying that together with us being really, really unhappy. Jay, I think what's going to happen, I love watching boomers. I love my mom and people her generation, like literally staring at their phones, complaining about how everybody's on their phone all the time. They're just as bad, if not worse. Like I see it. My wife and I were waiting at a restaurant in Vegas last week, and we saw like 6 people, probably between the ages of like 45 and 55, somewhere in there, sitting together, obviously on a trip together. And every single one of them is staring at their phone. Nobody's talking to each other. They're just staring on their phone. I think what's going to happen is I think we're going to see social media become like cigarettes, where everybody did it. And then all of a sudden it became overwhelmingly clear that it is really, really unhealthy and horrible for us. And we're going to see changes happen. I do. I think at some point people are going to go, wow, this is horrible
Crazy.
for us. And then people are going to
Do
change.
you think it's going to hit rock bottom first, or it's going to people
No,
will wake up
it's like,
before then?
I think it's similar to like eating disorders. They can't really hit rock bottom in the sense that people are still going to need them. You're still going to need
Right.
them.
Right.
You still have to be able to call people. But I have a feeling we'll see people like limiting it, getting good about, hey, only an hour a day. it's drinking.
It's a great business idea. They should come out with a dumb phone and a smartphone, so you'll have
They do.
people will have both phones, and they'll only use
they have
they'll use the dumb phone like 6 hours a day, and the smart, yeah.
There's just not enough peer pressure yet.
Right.
So once
Some big guys go, that's it, I'm shutting it down. I'm only using it for, and it's become so crazy that even like I text with doctors, whether it's texting or WhatsApp, whatever it is, or email, and they respond, rapid fire. I'm thinking to myself, like, aren't you supposed to be seeing patients? Like, what the heck? The answer is like they step out for a second, back on the phone, back. It's become like, and it's expected that someone responds. Like, like, why isn't the person responding? Why isn't like, we were talking earlier about, you accidentally, hit cap on whatever it is, cap lock, and he's like, why are you mad at me? I'm like, no, I just like, there's nothing, but no one knows what the other person's thinking. There's no, because it used to be people wrote letters. So what they did was they expressed their emotions in the letter. So it could be like 5 pages long. Today, that's concise into like, 3 sentences maybe on a text. Like,
yeah. So I know I used to do a
really
skit
thinking.
where instead of like whatever was on those love letters our grandparents sent each other, great grandparents, it's just whatever language is in a text now, right? Just a bunch of letters, and you got to try to figure out what they mean. Hey, Jay, I want to promote your website one more time, crazydentalprices.com.
Appreciate it.
Reach out to these guys. I know you guys are working hard to not just provide great prices, but great service. And I know that's really.
And I was literally talking to the CFO this morning about a project that we're working on. Also, we do the same thing as everything that we're trying also to our margins. We've got just like our margins are shrinking, we've got to find other ways for our providers to shrink those margins, and that way we can, share that savings over to the end user, because it can't, we have so many we're like a moving train here. There's so many moving parts, and we've got to continue to do that. That's how our minds work. And how do we save so that way we can share that with our, the end users in the offices? And it's not a struggle, because we love what we do. It's the business. That's the business we're in, and we just keep doing it. And we love that opportunity. It's very simple, and we guarantee, like you said, it'd be the least expensive in the industry. I'll publish pricing, and constantly working at that day in and day out. Procurement, that's what they do all day. And it sounds like, it's no big deal. It's a full-time job and some, so it's great. And I appreciate everything you guys do, and continue reading and getting smarter. Got all those books back there. So, like you said, your bookshelves have to be larger than your TV. So as long as you're not a football fan, you're in good shape. If you like football, you got to have that big screen, which means to offset that, you got to read more books.
Well, I just keep buying bigger bookshelves. That's all. You're creating more space between them, more photos on them.
Do you remember those encyclopedias as kids? Do you remember those the Britannicas? Yeah. Those are fat books. I remember going through that stuff, and the page used to be thicker also. Now it's all like.
Well, you didn't know this, but maybe you didn't think about this as a kid, but in those books there is different levels of quality that your parents could buy. So they could get like the base set for a couple $100 that would be kind of plain paper. And then for another extra $100, they could get like, where it had the index built into it. And then for another couple $100, they could get like, like a gold embossed paper and that sort of stuff. So there's differences. So, hey, Jay, crazydentalprices.com. Thank you so much for being here. We appreciate you sharing.
Appreciate you. Thank you so much. We'll speak to you soon, Patrick. Thank you.